Hello, I'm Tom Hunter. Thank you for watching West Virginia Press Association News Today.
And I'm Betsy DeBoard. We're going to give you an update on the news around West Virginia and tell you where you can find more information.
Like you, we're trying to stay informed and up to date on the issues that impact the daily lives of West Virginians. West Virginia Press Association News Today focuses on policy and impact, not politics or personalities.
Our goal is important news in an understandable format. We'll do our best, but tell us what you think at news@wvpress.org.
Now let's look at the top stories this week. Matt Combs of the Register-Herald of Beckley reports that officials from Webster, Nicholas, Fayette, Clay, and Braxton counties, along with other regional entities, have recently completed a study into the possibility of development of an ATV trail system in that five-county area. That study piggybacked the 2016 report completed by the Ray Hall Appalachian Transportation Institute at Marshall University that looked into the feasibility of a trail system development in the central part of the state. There is some talk that this study could lead to a partnership between this proposed central West Virginia trail system and the already well-established Hatfield-McCoy trail system, with those counties already having a developed tourism infrastructure, including lodging, that is missing in the most southern portion of the state. And Betsy, as we talk about the Hatfield-McCoy trail development, obviously it's been an economic boom for the southern part of the state.
It has, it really has. You know, it's a fun and positive way to bring revenue into the state, to really get people out there, draw in tourists, you know, not only our residents of this state, but those from surrounding states and even farther away.
And particularly at a time with an economic downturn in the state, in those regions that have been so affected by the losses in coal jobs and the economic impact that that has had, it's been an economic lifeline and providing a boost to those counties when it most desperately needed an economic boost.
It really has.
Gary Weir, the executive director of the Webster County Economic Development Authority, has said if built, this proposed central West Virginia trail system would mirror Hatfield-McCoy greatly and would consist of around 300 miles of trails in the early years. Weir said that the Hatfield-McCoy trail is expected to see 40,000 mostly out-of-state visitors this year, and a 2014 study of the Southern Trail system estimated that the Hatfield-McCoy trail had an annual economic impact upon the region of $22 million annually.
That's absolutely incredible. I mean, that's direct and indirect impact. You know, for business owners around the state, that is fantastic.
Max Garland of the Charleston Gazette-Mail reports that 27 West Virginia counties are involved in grant funding applications for broadband infrastructure improvements in unserved and underserved areas of the Mountain State, after the West Virginia Development Office announced it would expand its Community Development Block Grant program to include broadband access projects. 12 applications were submitted by regional development councils and county commissions, asking for a total of $1.59 million to fund these types of infrastructure projects across the state. The majority of the counties involved in the application process thus far are in southern West Virginia, a region lagging in broadband service and struggling economically in the wake of the coal decline. A recent Federal Communications Commission report ranked West Virginia 48th, Betsy, in broadband access and availability. It's a huge issue here in the Mountain State, not only for people that are continuing to work, but also for retirees that are looking to locate here and stay connected.
It is, you know, and not only this, I mean, I know there are pros and cons to every issue, but this is 2017, and having that access for internet, I mean, that's important to students, that's important to business owners. You know, it's really hindering them to be able to move out and develop those rural parts of the state. This is a really big issue for us.
Particularly in a state that depends so much on small businesses, big business in West Virginia, where 90% of those businesses in the state are small business owners.
Absolutely.
And they depend on the access to the internet in terms of transactions, in terms of just conducting their business day to day.
WVU Today tells how WVU student Matthew Bird has taken his childhood hobby of collecting bugs and his interest in wildlife and turned it into a successful beekeeping business in Ritchie County.
It's always shocked when I tell people I'm a beekeeper because I'm so young. It was just through that program offered by the Extension office that I became interested in beekeeping. I was a sophomore in high school. Going into that, I did not know anything about bees. When I graduated high school, the ag teacher at Ritchie County High School introduced me to WVU Launch Lab. She talked me into entering a business plan competition through WVU. So I have won $21,000, so that was a huge help to launching my full business. I want to keep my bees on the side business and maybe becoming one of the biggest honey producers in West Virginia.
Betsy, this is certainly a story that creates quite a buzz, quite literally, across much of the Mountain State because of honey production being such a key component of the agriculture industry here in West Virginia. And it's great to see somebody take a passion that they had as a child and be able to pursue that as a career here in the Mountain State.
It has. He's really taken a way to boost not only the economy, but to help our ecology in West Virginia. Jim Ross reports in the Exponent Telegram of Clarksburg. Tamarack is prepared for the holidays with thousands of West Virginia-made items. More than 1,300 West Virginia artisans and companies have items available for sale this holiday season. Items at Tamarack can range in price from the relatively inexpensive, such as a $40 coal miner statue, to those that are up into the four-figure price range.
Well, Tamarack, the best of West Virginia, is located on Interstate 77 in Beckley. It's open daily, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., and is closed on Christmas Day. Of course, you can read more about this story online at theet.com. And Betsy, I know that you've been a frequent visitor to Tamarack over the years, and probably purchased a few things from there.
I have, I really have. It's on my way when I travel, and you would not believe some of the talent that's showcased up there by people in West Virginia.
The Wheeling News Register has an editorial addressing the need for a winning strategy to stop drug abuse in West Virginia. In 2016, 884 people died of reported drug overdoses in our state. No one knows how many other deaths were caused by drug abuse but not attributed to it. The newspaper urges the state to reduce bureaucratic red tape on a pull out all the stops approach that questions virtually every aspect of health care, law enforcement, and education engagement regarding substance abuse. You can read more on this topic online at theintelligencer.net. And Betsy, the opioid epidemic we've talked about in the southern part of the state been such a major issue. Heroin's been an issue. There's not a community, nor is there a family in the state across all 55 counties that hasn't been impacted by this issue.
You're right, Tom, you're right. And this is so unfortunate. And this is an issue that impacts, even if it's not directly, it indirectly impacts our citizens in our state. You know, it's something that we really need to address and try to find a solution for to improve this. Up next, WVPA Insight with Don Smith and a look at the West Virginia Secretary of State's new voter identification law.
Hello, I'm Don Smith, Executive Director of the West Virginia Press Association. Welcome to West Virginia Press Insight, a weekly look at the issues that will impact all West Virginians. Joining us today is Donald Deke Kersey, Elections Director and Deputy Legal Counsel for Secretary of State Mac Warner. Today, we hope to provide residents with some insight into how the Secretary of State's office is preparing for the implementation of the new voter ID law. Deke, let's talk general awareness first. What does this new law mean for state residents?
Well, Don, what it means is starting January 1st, 2018, when a voter shows up to vote on Election Day or during early voting, they have to show some form of valid identifying document, which is just a fancy phrase for a form of ID. The different forms of ID are written in the code, and we have a card that we're presenting statewide through different stakeholder organizations as well as our office and the county clerk's offices that list all those forms of ID that a voter would have to use on Election Day to vote.
Okay. Now, Deke, behind us is an image, and you can see that's what residents around the state can expect to see through various groups and at the circuit clerk's office, correct? Or county clerk's office?
That's correct, yes.
Which county clerk or both?
County clerk. It may be at the circuit clerk's office, but we're distributing to the county clerk's offices.
Okay, great. And it has, again, explains the law, and then it goes into the available forms of ID and all the things that are out there.
That's right, and I'd like to mention a few of those if I could. So,
certainly.
The law allows both some photo and non-photo IDs to be used for a voter ID on Election Day. Some of the acceptable forms of non-photo identification include a utility bill, a bank statement, a Medicare card, a TANF card or a SNAP ID card, birth certificate, your voter registration card that you received in the mail after you registered to vote. And there are several other forms of non-photo ID that you can use to vote on Election Day. Some of the photo IDs that are acceptable would be a driver's license, a student ID card, a military ID card with a photograph, concealed carry permit. All those forms of photo identification cards are acceptable as well.
Okay, Deke, I've been voting for longer than I like to admit. I didn't realize that you didn't have to have ID when you went to vote now. I've always had ID and I've always used my driver's license, and I tend to think that most people out there probably do that. Don't most West Virginians have driver's license, and wouldn't that work in most cases?
Yes, and in fact, based on our research, it looks like something like 95% of registered voters have a driver's license. So those who don't have a driver's license would still have a voter registration card that they received in the mail when they registered to vote.
Okay. So if I've been voting and I've been taking I always go and I have my wallet with me, and in my wallet I have my voter ID card and my driver's license. If I have that and I go in, there's no change for me other than the poll worker will ask me to see that ID. Is that right?
That is correct. Now there are a few exceptions to being required to show a voter ID on Election Day. Three main categories. One is if you show up on Election Day and you don't have a valid form of ID, you can come with an adult who's known you for at least 6 months, and that person will sign an affidavit, a sworn statement, that says you are who you say you are, and that adult shows a photo ID, and then you can vote. The other exception would be if you are a resident of a licensed care facility in the state, for example, a retirement home or a nursing facility. If you're a resident at one of those care facilities and your polling place is at one of those care facilities, you don't have to show a form of ID. And the last exception is if you show up to vote and the poll worker knows you, the poll worker has known you for 6 months, you don't have to show ID to vote.
Okay. So my driver's license is good. My hunting, fishing license are good. My bank card is good. If the poll worker knows me, that's good. This really doesn't make it much more difficult to vote.
Not at all, no.
I have been out mowing my grass and said, oh, I got to run down and vote. It's Election Day. And I've got down there and I'm in a shorts and a t-shirt and tennis shoes, and I realize I don't have my wallet. And I say, oh, I got to go back. If someone would get in that situation and it's pulled, they can't get back in time, and they come in and they say, I don't have any ID, and no one knows me, can I still vote?
Absolutely.
Will they turn me away?
No. No voter will ever be turned away on Election Day, even after the new voter ID law goes into effect. All you would do in that situation would be the poll worker would have you vote a provisional ballot. And then at that time, there would be 5 days during which the county clerk's office will review your provisional ballot, and your signature on that will be compared to the signature on your voter registration. And if the signatures match, then your vote should be counted. You could also try and prove your residency during that 5-day period prior to canvass by showing up at the county clerk's office and showing them your ID that you forgot, or a utility bill with your name on it, something like that.
Okay. Now, I think the card you guys is putting out is very good. People will see that around. Again, on the front, it has the law explains it. It has the various forms of ID. On the back, it lists the exceptions. It has some frequently asked questions. So tell us a little bit about how people can expect. I know we said the county clerk's office, maybe the circuit clerk's office around the courthouse. Do you have any idea yet other places that will be out there, or you just know that it'll be everybody in every county should see this?
So we have a group of stakeholders that came to our office when we developed this program and have helped us create this card. And what we anticipate is some of those organizations will put these in a mailing. It might be slipped in a utility bill envelope. It may be mailed out to the constituents or handed out in person. There aren't a lot of funds, and there weren't any additional appropriations from the legislature after this law was passed to pay for an education campaign. The Secretary of State's office is charged with paying for that themselves, and the State Election Commission actually approved a small expenditure for these cards. So you can expect them at your county clerk's office most definitely, and as the stakeholder organizations hop on board, the more we have, the more you can expect to see other places throughout the state.
Okay. Now, I think one thing that's a little confusing, maybe not to me, but it could be confusing, is this isn't about proving residence. This is about proving that you're registered,
That's
correct? If you want to vote, just being a West Virginian isn't enough to allow you to vote in an election. You have to be a registered West Virginian to vote in an election. Is that correct?
That's right. And more specifically, the voter ID law is to prove your identification on Election Day. It's a very low threshold to prove. You don't need a photo identification, just something with your name on it issued by the West Virginia government or U.S. government.
Okay. Okay. Now, in terms of, I'm not registered. I am, but if, say I'm a person out there saying I'm a West Virginian, I'm not registered, I don't know if I'm registered. How do I get registered? What are the options for me to get registered so I can vote? How do I check to see if I'm registered? And as we were talking before the show, there was a time when I had moved and had registered in 2 different counties and had to change the other. So if they want to check those type of things, how do we go about that? How can you help them with that?
The easiest way to check your registration is online. The Secretary of State's website has an online portal that voters can check their registration. It's ovr.wv.sos.gov. And if you go to that website, you type in your name and your date of birth, and it'll show you where you're registered to vote and where your precinct is. And if it looks like it's not the right place, you can change your registration online at that same website. You can also contact your county clerk and get a voter registration application and fill that out to change your address. If you've moved from a different county, you'll have to fill out a new application, a new paper application, in order to update your registration automatically. You could do it online at that website, but you'll still have to show some form of ID before you vote to your county clerk to show the new address in the new county.
Okay. I've got to say this, that in all the times I've had difficulty voting, it's never been that, like I say, there's a couple times I forgot my wallet and I went back and got it because I had my driver's license and I had my voter ID card. But when I have struggled with voting, it is when there's a big crowd. And I don't care if there's a 10% turnout or a 50% turnout, you all want to vote the same time I go. When I get there, there's a line. And let's face it, we get off work at 5, we go to work at 8 or 9, we all try to stop in and do that. So we get there and we look up and say, oh, there's a lot of people here, I'll come back later. And while I don't have any data, I'm willing to say that that's a lot of the reasons registered voters end up missing a chance to vote is because of the line backing up. Now with this law saying, okay, when you come through, you at least have to get your ID out and the clerk has to check it. Are you worried that there will be longer lines and delays?
Yes, especially the first time around. This begins January 1st. I know there are some municipal elections that are happening early January, and this law applies to municipal, county, statewide, federal elections, all elections in the state. So especially for the newer states, or newer counties and cities that are going to have elections before we can really get the word out there, I do anticipate longer lines. Even in the May primary, I anticipate longer lines because we have poll workers that have been working for decades,
right,
that may not be used to checking ID. Our county clerks have a big hurdle to get over to train them, and I think it is to be expected. But there's a way around it. Early voting. Early voting starts 13 days before an election, and it lasts all the way up until 3 days before an election. And early voting's in person, or you can vote absentee if you fall under one of the categories. And the early voting period is 10 days long. It's on Saturday, on both Saturdays before the election. So it's a good opportunity to miss some of those long lines on election day and get out and vote early.
And there's usually one location in the county for early voting, right? If you go and do it in person, you go into the clerk's office and do that?
Right, usually.
Okay.
Some counties have satellite precincts, but the residents in those counties would know where they are. They get notice in the mail.
So, insight I get from this, and I hope our other people do, is first, don't panic. This is a new law, but you can vote. And for the majority of the people, they will notice no change except that the clerk will ask them for ID. And to be honest, and I know I've seen other people online, and I do it, I have my driver's license and my voter card out before I get there. And they may look at it, but I guess they are required to look at it now. So for the majority of people, there won't be a change. There may be a slightly longer line, but now early voting allows us to avoid that. Getting registered is the key. This is about proving you are the person, one, that you are registered and that you are that person. It has nothing to do with West Virginia residency other than you have to be in the right district to vote, correct?
Right, yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
I know that the newspapers of West Virginia will be covering this and putting editorials out and talking about it. We've always pushed for more people to vote in the state. Do you have goals in terms of getting people registered or keeping voter totals up? Or how are you going to gauge your success in this?
I think the county clerks will be the best people to gauge that. They'll know what the lines are like. They'll know what the turnout is like. We have a statewide voter registration system that we monitor, and we can see after an election, as the results come in, what those numbers look like. But really, I think the success in this will be if voters show up on Election Day with their valid identifying documents, prepared to show them to the poll workers, and aren't surprised, aren't upset about the new law, and if they don't have one of those documents, that they can call the county clerk's office and get one. They can call our office for information on how to get a valid identifying document. Really just preparing the state for this new law would be a success.
In some ways, if this gets people more interested in being registered, more aware of election regulations, maybe it helps.
Sure, yeah, we can hope.
Let's hope. Well, again, this is Don Smith with West Virginia Press Association Insight. We want to thank Deke for joining us from the Secretary of State's office to talk about the new voter ID law. We hope you've gained some insight. Thank you. Thank you, Deke.
Thank you.
It's December, and that means Christmas, winter, and ski season. Today we're looking at ski resorts in West Virginia. When the weather's right, there's skiing, snow tubing, snowshoeing, cross-country skiing, and even ice skating at these resorts. And for those who don't ski, there are a lot of other fun activities and packages at the resorts. So tell me your thoughts. Do you ski? Have you ever visited a West Virginia ski resort? Have you ever considered getting your family together for a fun weekend in West Virginia at one of these resorts? Email us at news@wvpress.org.